So when you're first looking to sell your company, sort of the first real item that comes up in negotiating with the buyer is what's called the letter of intent. It's basically a non-binding letter agreement, typically with an exhibit that contains purchase price and other terms that outlines the key terms of the deal. And it's very important to really focus at that time as the seller, where a lot of sellers, suddenly you've got an offer on the table and there's a certain purchase price, you like the purchase price, and there's a big desire to rush, sign letter of intent, move on, figuring you can just sort out whatever issues there are in the definitive agreements or in the negotiations after signing that. But it's really critical from the seller's perspective, it's important to get as much detail in the letter of intent as possible. The reason for that is that the one key binding provision in what's otherwise a non-binding document is exclusivity, where generally there's some period of exclusivity where you're prevented from talking to other buyers, prevented from talking to other potential investors. Sometimes it's 30 days, more likely 60 to 90 days. And the second the letter of intent gets signed, as the seller, your leverage drops dramatically. The buyer knows they've got you hooked. They know that you've agreed to the general terms of the deal. And so from the seller's perspective, the more detail on sort of the second level of issues as far as closing conditions and indemnification and escrows and all the sort of other terms that come in a deal after purchase price, from the seller's perspective, the more that is in the letter of intent, the better off it is, because you're negotiating at your time of leverage, where the buyer will generally want to get a very vague letter of intent that just talks about purchase price, maybe even a range of purchase price, and then just says we'll negotiate in good faith and everything else. Because from the buyer's perspective, negotiating those items with exclusivity, knowing other buyers are not in the picture, puts them in the ideal position. So again, when you're selling your company, the very first important document you'll negotiate with the seller or with the buyer is the letter of intent, and it's really important to spend the time, get good advisors, lawyers, investment bankers, whoever's involved, and have them really help get that document in the best shape possible.